every Maine business adds value to our state. Diversity adds strength and beauty to our communities. We each have different journeys with a common goal: to prosper and contribute to a vibrant, thriving future in Maine, all to help strengthen the economy. Greenlight Maine and Bangor Savings Bank present Elevating Voices, a celebration of Maine's diverse business community.
Maine College of Art and Design is the oldest art education school in Maine. It also ranks among one of the best in the country. We learned all that and more when we sat down with Evelyn Wong, a former student, now teacher and artist.
I'm an artist, and I'm currently a full-time artist and kind of have been so since the pandemic started, pretty much. I used to work locally at a part-time job, and I went on my first artist residency. And it just so happened that when I went there, about 2 weeks in, the pandemic started. And before I got back, I got laid off. And it was actually kind of, for the better. And it was kind of interesting because I've been working as an artist for a long time. And it was just kind of, like a lot of artists do, we have part-time jobs or even full-time jobs here and there. And then we do art on the side, because it's not sustainable or it doesn't make a lot of money or something. And it kind of gave me an opportunity, losing that job and having a pandemic where we had to be inside all the time, and I sort of had to reevaluate everything. And I realized that I could make it as an artist and that it required a lot more than I thought it would. But I think just making a few changes in my life ended up being really productive for me. And so switching gears to being a full-time artist also meant teaching, giving talks, meeting a lot of people, and building networks within the community, which has been really exciting.
When did you first feel inspired to do this?
Even as a child, I've always done art, and I've always been really excited about it and interested in it. Art is everywhere, and so for me, seeing it as a possible viable career, then, as a young, 18 to 20 something, whatever age I was in undergrad, then it was like, oh, this is exciting, I can be an artist, But I think it was really more recently that I decided that this is the career that I want for myself, Finding a little bit of community and realizing that art was not just me being in the studio, but also networking with other artists and other creative people and learning from them and having really great conversations about how can we make our communities better. And so that became something that I wrapped into my practice. And so I think that was kind of maybe in my later part of life, later 20s to early 30s was when I decided this is really what I want to do with art.
What is Pickwick Press and what do you do there?
Pickwick Press is an independent press and a print shop. And it's really an artist collective as well, which is really exciting for me because I keep talking about community. And there's a fabulous community of artists and makers there. And I've been working on a set of posters that are related to being Asian American. In January, there was actually an incident with a news station in St. Louis, Missouri. Michelle Lee, who is a news anchor there, she had talked about her New Year's plans as a Korean American, and she had mentioned how for New Year's traditions, Koreans tend to eat dumplings, and that was what she had planned to do. It was really funny because shortly after that, their news station received a really racist call, and it was some woman who had complained about how she was being very Asian on air and that it was so very annoying that she needed to keep her Korean to herself. And it was just spawned from, the fact that she talked about eating dumplings, which was such a ridiculous thing. And so she talked about how she initially was devastated by that. But after she thought about it for a while, she shared it on her social media, and the Asian American community on social media rallied around that and was like, this is both terrible but also hilarious. What a ridiculous thing for someone to say. And so they turned what the woman had said on the phone call, that she was very Asian, and they turned it into a hashtag. And so they started that as a movement of sorts. And so for a lot of people in the creative community, myself included, we've been thinking about using that hashtag as a way to express our solidarity, but also what we were as a community, that we are very Asian. And so one of the prints I've been working on at Pickwick is actually a poster with it's with a gold lantern on it, and it's very Asian written on there, designs clouds and flowers and things along with the lantern in the back.
So today we're in Waterville, Maine, and this is the Small Press Fest that was organized by me and my co-organizer Julia Arredondo. We will see artists, of course, but zines and art prints, other printed materials, original bound books, great art stuff, as well as t-shirts and sweaters. I actually met Evelyn Wong through Adrian Herman, who was her professor at Mecca, and she thought she would be a great person to have at this fest.
I had the privilege of working with Evelyn during her graduate experience at Maine College of Art and Design. Right now she's actually an adjunct for us teaching at the college. Next semester she's going to teach an artist book class.
I teach part-time here at Maine College of Art and Design as an adjunct professor. This is actually my first time teaching as a professor, which is really interesting so far. I've been teaching for quite some time actually, prior to this and a lot of other jobs I've had. I do book arts as an artist, and it's part of I think for me, I see book arts as a larger, maybe like a field of art and maybe even inquiry and community building. I'm really interested in book arts as a form of narrative art. Book arts became kind of this avenue for me to really explore, and then I started a bookbinding business that just came out of the book arts explorations.
That leads me to my next question. What brought you to Maine?
So I was working for the University of South Carolina, and I was working in the School of Visual Art and Design. And oddly enough, I was a graduate student coordinator there, and I didn't have my own MFA while I was helping MFAs select their classes. And I think that job really gave me a push, and I'd worked there, I think, for maybe about a whole year and a half at that point. And I thought about, I really need to do what these students are doing. They really inspired me, So that really gave me a push, and I was like, I need to find somewhere to go and get my MFA and do what I want to do. I want to move away from working on what art I was working on then and just switch gears completely and do something different. And so I ended up applying to a lot of graduate programs. I got into 4 different programs, and one of them was Maine College of Art and Design. And it just so happened that this was one of my top 5 schools. And I was really excited that it was not only an interdisciplinary program, which would give me the opportunity to switch gears as an artist and explore a lot of other media that I had never explored before, but also they had kind of this track to help students become teaching assistants. And I knew that I wanted to teach because I'd always enjoyed teaching, and so I wanted that opportunity to be able to teach and engage with students. And so I was like, that's the MFA program I want to go to. And so I spent 2 years in the program from 2017 to 2019. If it weren't for coming to school here, I would have never thought to come to Maine. And with that comes the community that I've been able to find here, which is so exciting for me. I didn't have as much of a community back home, and coming here, it felt like such a much vibrant art scene here that I really liked it, and I didn't mind being stuck here.
Bangor Savings Bank, committed to investing in its employees, customers, and communities to help create a stronger Northern New England. Bangor Savings Bank. You matter more.
Hannaford Supermarkets, celebrating the diversity of its employees, customers, and communities, and committed to fostering a welcoming environment. Together, they're greater than groceries. Learn more at hannaford.com.
Martins Point Generations Advantage, offering comprehensive Medicare Advantage plans. Information at martinspoint.org.
It says on your website you're a survivor of multi-generational trauma. How does that inform your art?
I think when it comes to making art about that, it's definitely scary to even come out and talk about, because people don't want to talk about trauma. It makes people uncomfortable. It makes people sad. Talking about it publicly, talking about it to people who are students, people who are colleagues of mine, it actually helped them to open up about their trauma too, which I found was really interesting. And it sort of set me on this route of looking for ways that we can all find healing through narrative arts and through developing community. Taking all of those aspects of it really helped me to put it into my artwork and to think about how I can use that artwork beyond just making physical objects, how I can take that artwork out into the world and share that with people and get people talking more about, these things that really aren't comfortable subjects at all. One of the works I have in the ICA right now is a book called Mooncakes for Democracy, and that is a work that I made in light of the 2020 elections and how there was a lot of anti-Asian racism that was going on at the time. A lot of Asians actually tend to not vote. We have a tendency to not want to get involved in politics, and so I thought about how a lot of our inaction led to problems like what we were dealing with and what we were seeing. And so I was thinking about, at the time, mooncakes, which is a traditional Chinese food. And legend has it that mooncakes were created as a way to subvert government. And they were used to hide messages at a time whenever there was a Mongolian tyrant that had ruled over China. And he was really ruthless and killed a lot of people, innocent people and civilians. And to counter that, there was a rebel army who, because there was a rumor that they all believed in at the time that Mongolians hated mooncakes, they thought they were disgusting. And so the rebel army hid secret messages in mooncakes and brought them all over China. And the messages inside actually told people to come together to revolt on a certain day. And that day was the Mid-Autumn Festival. And so all the people on that day in this legend came together on that and then overthrew the Mongolian emperor. And so I thought about how that could translate into modern times, into how we vote and how we choose to act or not act when it comes to something that affects public policy and how we operate on a day-to-day basis. And so that piece is created to talk about that particular issue.
I've noticed the size of your art seems to have a common thread. You seem to make very small pieces. What draws you to that size?
Part of it is because I really enjoy the intimacy of smaller objects. Because when I think about, especially one of the things that drew me to book arts was because it is such an intimate thing. You are there reading a page and engaging with it on such a personal level that you actually, you don't just stand 6 feet away to look at the artwork. You don't stand 20 feet away because it's huge and you have to stand back to see all of it. I want people to engage with something on a much more personal level. I like people feeling like they are one with whatever the artwork is, the object that they're looking at, as opposed to feeling like they're simply being consumed by it, they're enveloped by it, or like they may even be intimidated by it. But I think closeness is something that I think I really enjoy, and I want people to enjoy that.
Puritan Medical Products has been manufacturing in Guilford and Pittsfield, Maine for more than a century. They responded quickly to the pandemic, shipping test swabs for people worldwide. Recognized for innovation and focus on the future. Puritan Medical Products.
Albin, Randall & Bennett, committed to providing accounting solutions to Greenlight Maine startups, working with businesses and organizations that operate locally and nationally. ARBCPA.com.
We had the pleasure of visiting a job site to meet Orson Horchler, the owner of a construction company called Bondeko, and we learned this is a business with a mission.
you pretty much grew up in France.
Yeah.
What was that like?
I grew up in, it was only an hour away from Paris, but it was a very segregated area. Lots of housing projects for miles and trains that went to Paris, but pretty unsafe to take. So it was kind of like South Central without guns. So not nearly the death toll of other areas with gangs, but yeah, a lot of tension and a lot of, yeah, and then 200 days of rain a year. I grew up dreaming of coming to the US, and I also had my father lived here, so I was born in the US. I left when I was a toddler, and my dad had been in Ellsworth, Maine the whole time I was in France. So yeah, so then I grew up like watching biker movies and probably the only kid in France listening to country and dreaming about coming to the US. So
what happened when you got here? Did you feel like you fit in?
It was very different. It was very different than what I'd seen on media. Being
So
in
it was
France.
not the America you had envisioned.
I was completely stunned by the natural beauty. There's just not a lot less of that in Europe. So the expanses of mountains and the forest and the like animals. I was very scared of bears. I was like because of where I grew up, like you could take me to any like dangerous place of a city, I'd never be scared, you know. But I was terrified of being outside the house at night because I thought the bears were gonna attack me.
A lot of wildlife in Maine, that's for sure.
Yeah, but very, very beautiful and exciting for me to see.
Tell us about Pigeon. That is your artist's name.
Mm-hmm. One of the challenges of being in Maine was always finding community, especially as an outsider and somebody from a different culture. And so when I was in Bangor, one time I just figured the way to create that was just by doing street art. And to sort of try to shape the city the way I wanted it to look like, as a place that was more colorful and more fun, and where people would want to hang out outside, because I didn't see a lot of that going on. And then, so I started doing street art, and before I knew it, it just kind of became a thing in Bangor where people would not only, they would love to see the artwork, but also would relate to it as something that was theirs. So it was like, oh, like even if you're from Brewer, you can't understand Pigeon because it's a Bangor thing, you know? So it was really cool because it got me really to delve into like thinking about how do you belong to a place when is there like shame about belonging to a place? Like I had growing up where I grew up, and then I felt there was a little bit of that going on in some cities in Maine, and so it's kind of like, you know, reclaiming place. And then when I got to Portland, I didn't have much to comment about with my street art about Portland because I didn't know Portland, but I did start. I finally found a community in Maine with so many immigrants here and francophones like myself. So and at the same time was seeing policies that really targeting new asylum seekers and new immigrants to Maine. So I started the Mainer projects as a reaction to that. So it started as a protest thing, and I just went in the street and wherever I could and put posters up. And then I was invited by a lot of organizations, including the Maine Attorney General and schools across the state to work, come do talks and work with kids and do murals at schools. And that was an amazing experience, yeah.
That's awesome. So how do you go from going into construction?
Well, this whole time I have to have a job, so I started working construction when I got here at 18. So I've worked construction for a number of years, and in Maine I learned carpentry.
So you named your company Bondeko, which means International Brotherhood in the Bantu language of Lingala. What made you name your company that?
So when I came here to Portland, I met a lot of francophones, and they were mostly from Congo and Angola. And they also spoke Lingala, so it kind of overlaps. And I was learning Lingala, and I was like, I want to pick it's a spoken language, so I figured if I pick a word in that language, it won't, like, whatever it is, .com won't be taken, and all the, you know, it'll be a new name. And so it took me about a year of learning Lingala, and then when I found that word, I just loved the sound of it. And I felt like it really represented like what we do at Bondeko. which is to create community with bringing people that are completely different cultures and then bringing that to the client. So I've often explained the name to our clients and they're like, well, this is kind of how we feel about you guys in our house. So yeah, it just felt like the right name.
And you guys are booked through next year?
Yeah, February to
Wow.
2023.
It's amazing.
It takes a while. What's been really helpful for us is just online reviews. It's a big thing. It allows for people to check us out even without us having worked.
Orson, you good?
I'm good.
You good?
I'm good until you guys showed up.
I like how you pick employees that are from different countries. Why do you do that?
So our focus at Bondeko is not just numbers of how many people we train. So some companies will say, well, this is how many immigrants or people of color or whatever they choose to say we've trained in the trades. And for us, it's really about the quality. We're trying to create the best intercultural space as possible, meaning a space where we're not just multicultural, but there's an equality in our how we're able to express our cultures, and we're also changing, like ourselves, we're changing through the process. So that's led me to have certain principles that I've developed to make that work well. And one of the principles is to have only one person from each culture in the crew. There's less chance of somebody dominating or a group of people in the company dominating with their cultures. The way that we're going to talk, the way we're going to behave, dress, everything.
So where can people find your artwork?
So there's a bus shelter that went up with the Maine Project on St. John Street in collaboration with Creative Portland. So as a street artist, one thing I love is that my artwork is temporary, and I love it because my artwork is always really engaged with political issues, and also because I'm addressing things that I hope will no longer be relevant. So when I put my artwork will, for example, have an image of a girl in hijab with written the Maine underneath, I hope that the next generation will look at that and be like, so what? What's the big deal, you know? So I liked having my artwork temporary. I did want to have a project that was more permanent, and I really liked the idea that the Creative Portland was putting forth of having bus shelters, because it's in a public place. It's really important for me to have my artwork not in museums, but in places where everybody can critique it. And it does happen, like while we're installing it, people come to us and freak out about the message and everything. So I want that to be able to happen, and I love that it's part of the public transportation, which is a great system in Portland, and yeah.
So you're an artist, you're a carpenter, and you're a musician.
Mm-hmm. And one of the great joys about working with having Bondeko, the company, is I've hired two incredible international musicians, Namari Keita, who's a Guinean drummer for many generations, who's teaches and internationally, and when he's not carpentering with us, and Uliber Kafka, who is an accordion folklorist from Albania. So we have a band that's also called Bondeko, and in our band, it's exactly like at our company. It's like bringing completely different cultures together, completely different ideas of what music is. From my drummer, who's from Africa, my accordion player, who spent 43 years in a very harsh communist dictatorship, completely isolated from the world. And he only speaks 20 words of common language with us. It's just about working every day at learning how to work together in spite of the huge cultural gaps to build a piece of furniture or compose that song. And yeah, this is our lifestyle, so to speak.
Mariana
Because we're all Mainers, and making healthcare work for you includes providing care to more Mainers. Innovations in ways you can access care when and where you need us. northernlighthealth.org.
Maine Technology Institute, offering grants, loans, and equity investments to help support Maine's innovation economy and committed to supporting new ideas with potential to grow. Visit mainetechnology.org.
FAME came along at a time when we really needed somebody to believe in our mission.
It's so nice to have somebody actually try to understand what we're doing.
FAME helps Maine businesses and lenders get to yes for their financing needs.
Thank you, FAME.
Thank you, FAME.
Thank you, FAME.
At Bangor Savings Bank, we're so grateful to be part of the Elevating Voices series and to get to know these people better and to learn about their stories and their businesses and all the good work and impact they have in our communities.
When I first heard I was going to be on Elevating Voices, my first question was, what is Elevating Voices? And then I looked a little bit more into it, and I actually found out there were at least 3 people I knew whose work I really respect and like, and who had already been on it. There's Catherine from Sea Love Cookie Project, my friend Ebenezer, as well as Jason, also known as Firefly from up in the Bangor way. So yeah, and these are all people who I thought really need more attention for the work they're doing in the communities and just for their skills and talents. So yeah, I felt just glad to be part of that lineup.